Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that's absolutely foundational for anyone who wants to be a manager, a leader in a business. We're talking about internal controls, specifically through the lens of human resources. And trust me, this isn't just about crunching numbers. It's really about how you build a healthy, strong organization from the very core.
So let's start with a big picture question to get us thinking. Picture any company you can think of. A local coffee shop, a huge tech firm, doesn't matter. Where does its greatest, most undeniable strength come from? And at the same time, where is its single greatest point of weakness?
The answer is actually the same for both questions. It's the people. Your people are the engine, right? Their ideas, their energy, their commitment, that's what makes a business succeed. But, and this is the critical part, people are also where your biggest risks come from. We're talking about everything from an honest mistake on a spreadsheet to deliberate, well-planned fraud. Really getting your head around this two-sided coin is, frankly, the first step to becoming a truly effective manager.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. First, we're going to really unpack that human element of risk. Then we'll get into the solutions, talking about what I call the human firewall and how to design jobs for integrity. After that, we're going to put you in the hot seat with a real-world scenario so you can see how this all plays out. And we'll wrap up by talking about why this is your responsibility as a leader, not someone else's.
All right, let's get into it. Before we could even begin to talk about fixing problems, we have to deeply understand the nature of the risk itself. And we need to be speaking the same language. So let's start with a really core definition.
Now, I know, this looks like it was pulled straight from an accounting textbook, but let's break this down. A better way to think of internal controls is it's like the entire safety system of a car. You've got the seatbelts, the airbags, the crumple zones, the warning lights. It's the whole ecosystem of rules and procedures you design to protect the company, make sure your financial numbers are telling the truth, and just generally keep things running the way they're supposed to. Now, I want you to focus on this key phrase, reasonable assurance. Why not absolute assurance? Well, because that's impossible. No system can be perfect. You'll always have the risk of human error, or two people deciding to work together to get around the system, or a control just costing way more than the problem it's trying to solve. So our goal isn't to build an impenetrable fortress, it's to manage risk down to a smart, acceptable level.
And that idea leads us directly to our next point. When we talk about controls, it's easy to picture things like fancy security software or teams of auditors. But your first and honestly your most important line of defense isn't a piece of technology. It's your people. It's what we call the human firewall. And this is the absolute bottom line. You could spend millions of dollars on the most state-of-the-art control system in the world, but if the people on the ground, the ones doing the work every single day, if they don't get it, or they don't think it's important, or they just plain don't know how to do it right, that multi-million-dollar system is completely worthless.
So how do you build that strong human firewall? It all boils down to great ongoing training built on these 4 pillars. First, you need clear policies, no gray areas. Second, and this is where so many companies just drop the ball, you have to explain the why. People are so much more likely to follow a process if they understand the logic behind it. It turns them from just rule followers into actual guardians of the system. Third, of course, there have to be clear consequences. And finally, and this is huge, this is not a one-and-done thing you do when someone gets hired. You have to do regular refreshers because the business changes, the risks change, and honestly, complacency is the biggest threat to any good control system.
Okay, so we've talked about the people. Now let's talk about the structure they operate in. If training is about preparing your people for success, this next part is about preparing the system itself for success. We're shifting from the cultural side to the structural side.
Segregation of duties. This might be one of the most brilliant and fundamentally simple concepts in all of business management. The whole idea is that you never let one single person control a critical process from start to finish. The classic model for this is separating 3 things: authorization, custody, and record keeping. So the person who authorizes a payment shouldn't be the same person who has custody of the checkbook, and neither of them should be the person who records that payment in the accounting system. When you separate those roles, you make it almost impossible for one person to commit fraud and, this is the really key part, to then conceal it.
And this slide does a great job of showing you exactly what that looks like. Over on the left, you've got a really high-risk setup. One person has all the keys to the kingdom. They handle the cash, that's custody. They approve purchases, that's authorization. It would be incredibly easy for them to create a fake invoice, pay it to themselves, and no one would ever know. But now look at the right. To do the same thing here, employee A and employee B would have to collude. They'd have to conspire together to cheat the company.
Now, not only does that require two people to be dishonest, but it creates a conspiracy trail which is way riskier and much easier to uncover. See that? With one simple structural change, we've massively reduced the risk.
Okay, enough theory, let's make this real. We're going to walk through a scenario that I can almost promise you, in one form or another, you will face very early in your career as manager.
So just imagine this. You land a great job. You're the first real manager hired at a cool little online store. The business is blowing up, it's super exciting, but all of their systems were just kind of made up on the fly when the founder was running it out of her apartment. It's a real business now, and they've hired you to bring in some professional structure.
So it's your first week. You're just watching how everything works, and you see something that makes the little alarm bells go off in your head. There's one employee who does a fantastic job packing and shipping all the orders. They're handling the physical product. But you also notice that same employee has the login and authority to process customer refunds. So before I show you the next slide, I want you to actually pause for a second. Put on your manager hat. What is the specific control weakness here? What are the ways this could go wrong?
All right, so what could go wrong? Well, that employee could pretty easily process a fake refund to their own credit card. Or they could take a product home and then just process a customer return in the computer to make the inventory numbers match. This brings us to the absolute #1 mistake that new managers make. They look at this situation and they think, yeah, but we're a small team and we trust Sarah. She's been with us since the beginning. I need to be perfectly clear with you all. Trust is a wonderful human emotion, but trust is not an internal control. Implementing good controls isn't a sign of distrust. In fact, it protects everyone. It protects the business, and it protects honest employees like Sarah from ever being tempted or, worse, wrongly accused if something does go missing.
And you know, the beautiful thing is, the fix is so simple and logical, it has nothing to do with personalities, it's just smart management. Your first move as the new manager is to segregate these duties. Step 1, done. The person handling the physical product can no longer process financial transactions, period. Step 2, you, the manager, now have to approve every single refund before it gets processed. You're the second set of eyes. And step 3, you close the loop by creating a quick weekly report just to review all the refund activity. And boom, with 3 logical steps, you've taken a massive risk off the table and built a process that encourages integrity.
So let's zoom out and bring this all home. We've talked about definitions, we've talked about training, we've talked about structure. But why does this stuff really matter to you as a future leader and not just something you delegate to the accountants? Here is the one thing I really hope you take away from our time today. Your job when it comes to internal controls goes way beyond just making sure the books are balanced. When you design, implement, and, most importantly, enforce good controls, you are building your company's culture. It is the most tangible, real-world way you demonstrate a commitment to accountability, to integrity, to doing things the right way. It really sets the tone for everything else.
So as you head out into your careers and you start managing teams and maybe even running companies one day, I want you to remember this. Your real job isn't just to manage people's tasks. It's to build systems and a culture where good, honest people can do their best work with clarity and security. That foundation, that real earned foundation of trust and accountability, it begins with the principles we've just talked about. So the real question I'll leave you with is, what kind of foundation are you going to build?